In 1983, a book entitled Saga from the Hills, A History of the Swedes in Jamestown, was published covering the exploits of various Swedish people in the area. Among the notable Swedes covered in the book was C.S. and Henry Carlson. What did they do to deserve such acclaim, and where did it all begin?
His name was Carl Siegfried Carlson, and he grew up in a small, not even a hamlet, I don't think, of our school. You were there, Gladys.
Yeah, just down in the country.
Yeah, in the country, right. And,
what's the name?
And I was there. I was there in 1931.
And this is his home, right? It's where he was brought up, right there.
And I was sort of impressed even at that young age of how poor agricultural place it was. Just granite rock, you know, and very few fertile places where they could grow things. And I think he got involved early with butchering animals of various kinds, you know, beef cattle and pigs and so forth. And did you see the place where they had the tackle where they?
In back here, that's the slaughterhouse, and they still have the wheel in that slaughterhouse there, that barn where they used to pull the calves up and I guess kill them. So that was really impressive to go back to his home there and see the little stuga where he was brought up and where he learned to start his book. Coming over from Sweden in 1903, worked in a sawmill in Austin, a restaurant in Sheffield, and then came to Jamestown in 1909. He first worked for Oscar Lindblom at the public market, and then opened his own market on East 2nd Street in Cross with a partner.
Decided to go to the meat business. Of course, he learned the meat cutting trade in Sweden.
Yes.
He left the farm and lived with these people in Alingsås, the next largest city, and learned the trade there. So then he took it up in Jamestown, and the first market I remember his having was on Cross Street.
Yes.
Cross and 2nd there, in the back of that brick building. My dad used to work for him on Saturdays, and through that we'd get a roast that would last us all week, or chicken. That was my dad's pay. Next year,
which C.S. didn't want to discuss, he sold it and moved to the city public market by himself.
Market next. From Cross City Market?
The old public market. Had a big business. Everybody called him C.S.
Baptist Carlson.
Yeah, Carlson. Because there was a C. Carl that had was he a meat man too?
No,
no, not him.
C.B. wasn't a meat.
Might have been another Carlson.
C.B. Carlson.
That Mr. Lindblom had the stall.
Svarte Carlson.
Svarte Carlson. Black Carlson?
Carlson.
Yeah, dark hair then, huh?
Yes.
I remember Rosequist had a cheese place down there.
Yes, that the meat.
Yeah. Just had a one meat block, didn't he?
Yes.
Well, you know, my husband used to work for your dad. I didn't know that was the guy that was working for them at that time, of course.
With Dick Rockman at 2 Foote Avenue stores, corner of Newland and Foote, and later opened on Foote and Prather. Bill remembers delivering flyers advertising the opening of the stores with Hank to all the houses in the Allen Park area. The car here was the delivery truck for the businesses. The partnership was dissolved after several years, and Phil thinks that the money he received from Dick for the businesses was used to buy our house on 48 Chapman Street. Dad continued his successful business in the public market.
Said that he decided that he would start a little market on the south side of Jamestown. Would Dick like to run it? And up until that point, Dick was not a partner. He was working for your dad. But your dad had some expenses of some kind, and he said to Dick, I'm willing to sell the business to you for $1,400. And that was after we were married. So he came home and says, can we raise that kind of money? And I said, well, we don't have it, you know that as well as I do, but we'll get it somehow or other. There was no one we could go to.
And Brooklyn Square, extension of Brooklyn Square, there was, which was really a piece of Forest Avenue there, was this city market. And there was the place where people got their meats and the butter and eggs and every darn thing you'd want. You could even get rabbits at one time there. And the meats usually were on the outside booths, and they were all vying with each other for the customers. And people went to the same ones usually as they did, you know, from week to week. Some of them would try somebody else once in a while, but most of them had their regular customers that came there regularly. And they had nice fresh meats. They were good butchers. And then in the middle, you see, the stalls were for the big hunks of cheese, great big pieces of cheese, and butter with about 2 feet high. Wheels of butter, which they cut on. It smelled so good. It doesn't smell like that today.
But the market itself.
The market, oh, that was a very, very busy place. And there were many, well, it was really the forerunner of a supermarket. They had independent merchants. Maybe they had, I don't know how many, I'm going to say 7 or 8 meat men, and there were fruit, vegetable men, there was butter and egg men, there was a fish market, there were a florist shop. They were all independently run, independent of each other, and they were all very highly competitive. And the business was just immense. People were milling around all the time, and on Saturdays you couldn't even walk through the aisles. And very, very busy time.
Now, what did CS specialize in? The market.
Well, he specialized in the meat.
Meat.
Completely. There was all kinds of meat you could buy there. And that's why we had to go so early on Saturday morning, because we had to prepare the meat for the case. In those days, as they do today, you cut it up, you know, and have it ready and just pile in. But there you had to cut it that day, and you didn't have power machines. You sawed it by hand, and cut by hand and sawed, and it took a little while to cut up the meat. And prepare the case so that when the people came in about 7 o'clock, you would be ready for it. And Aunt Edith were just very special to me. And I used to even spend nights there. That was when we lived on the farm. I'd spend nights there almost at will. If I was at a point where I wouldn't go home at night, I would stay there and everything would be just fine. But then, like Saturday morning, well, I worked nights after school at the market, and then Saturday morning, I was to get up at 4:30 and go over to Uncle C.S., and he would have breakfast ready for me. Ham and eggs and the works. Oh, just a real luscious breakfast. And he fed me so well. Well, then it was already when I walked in the door, about 5 o'clock, we were on our way down the hill to the city market. And we worked, and then we worked until the market closed at 9 o'clock. Well, then it was about 10 o'clock before we got cleaned up, almost 10 anyhow. And that was at the time I was courting my wife, and I would send her, roller skating, and she would go roller skating, and then I would pick her up at the roller skating rink for about the last skate. Well, this always kind of tickled me because she had to pay her own way into the roller skating.
Yeah, it always tickled me too.
Stop in the market all the time. We used to stop in the market. And of course, we stopped at Lofgren's first, which had all the buttermilk we could drink for a nickel. So we'd glub down about 3 glasses of buttermilk, and then we'd walk over to Uncle Carl, and he'd give us a couple of wieners. And off the hill we'd go, and it was buttermilk and wieners. What a combination.
I went with my brother to get the meat from CS, and I was taking out a meeting, and CS would say, "This will help you get home." So we each walked out of the public market with my brother and I, trunk of the wheeler. This will help you get home.
Working for it. We get real busy. And things would be so lively we didn't know which end was up hardly. Then CS would say, "Sure, vara pojkar, sure." In other words, just keep on, get going. And then he says, "They går fast to leave, fast to varit," he said, or something to that effect. Oh, that was
Part-time for Dad after school and Saturdays when he was 16 years old. When he was 18, he started working full-time and later took over the business around 1945 when Dad became sick with asthma and later Parkinson's disease. Everybody in the family helped out at the market, cutting and selling meat. Bill, Stanley, and Harold. I even helped during the war, selling meat on Saturdays. That was the busiest day at the market. And then helping Dad at night, counting the day's receipts for the deposit and counting the food stamps which they needed during the war to buy their meat. I thought it was fun to handle all the money and great that my dad trusted me with this job. Hank and Vi remained at the market until it was closed in 1965 and then moved to 218 West 3rd Street, formerly Levon's, and named it Carlson Viking Food. Hank and Vi retired on March 28, 1977, when they sold the business. We can't think of Dad's market without mentioning Christmas. Weeks before Christmas, they worked late into the night making tons of corn. That's Swedish sausage, potato, barley, meat, silta, and julskinka, which is Christmas ham, and other Swedish specialties that we had to have for the holidays. People standing in lines, fighting to be next to be waited on. Tanya, Lyle, Dick, and I still get together at Christmas time to carry on the tradition of homemade corn, barley, and potato with Dad and Hank's recipes. Tanya tasting the raw meat to make sure we have just the right seasonings like her dad used to do. Always came to Daddy, didn't they, for their meat?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, I probably know a little bit more about Carlson or Salvation Army than anyone. For any time when we needed something, and we had our parties, so they were the only one we had to go to, and he was always willing to help us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much he used to go down on the meat when we had our meatball supper. We bought that meat for half a price. So,
yeah. I know he thought a lot of all the people over there. He really loved them.
And under 1932, when we had that big depression, we had a whole lot of money, poor people. But Carlson always had a little package put away down there or stick to them when they come to the market.
Yeah.
Members C.S. Carlson.
Began in Jamestown with a very godly layman who was a businessman. He owned a thriving meat market. And then suddenly the Great Depression came. And in those days, there was no such thing as welfare. And if a man had no job, the family had no food. And they would come to the meat market to see if they could get credit. And what would Mr. C.S. Carlson do? He prayed about it. And he decided, as a Christian businessman, he had to give credit. Hungry people had to eat. And he offered that credit. His business almost folded. There was a cash flow problem. Enough money was not coming in, but God blessed the business and it survived. And then the economy righted itself, and these dear people came back and they paid their bills. And they paid them up in full. And the money came back in, and God was blessing Mr. Carlson, and he became a legend in Jamestown. He was known all over this county as a man that would not refuse credit during the days of depression.